You all know that feeling when you're driving through a desert and a hot naked girl is just laying there on the road waiting for you to pick her up with your food truck? Yeah, me neither. But for our middle-aged protagonist, Gordon, it's more common than you might think. After putting her in his truck, he decides to feed her again and again and again and again. It seems like all this girl does is eat and sleep. It isn't long, however, until Gordon is pulled over by the military. They're clearly looking for the naked girl pigging out in the back of his food truck. When feigning ignorance doesn't work, Gordon doesn't hesitate to take out some of the soldiers, while the mysterious girl, Arisa, takes out the other ones. After being chased some more, Gordon uses a cannon attached to his food truck to take out his pursuers, and with that, the tone is set for the next 15 chapters of this badass manga. Crazy Food Truck is a manga that I bought on a whim. It only has 3 volumes, so the investment wasn't that big. Sure, I could have just read it online somewhere or via an app, but I like collecting physical manga volumes quite a bit. The art style and premise of the story spoke to me a lot actually, and if there's one thing I learned over the years, it's that manga with only a couple of volumes tend to have the best stories. They don't have to bother with filler and are able to give us readers a well-constructed story instead. Crazy Food Truck plays out in the far future, where, for some reason, Earth has lost most of its water. Japan has turned into a desert, and the animals that remain have adapted to this new sandy lifestyle. We see chickens swimming through the sand octopuses large enough to snack on our protagonists, and snails feeding on cacti, with some of them hiding golden balls underneath their shells. It's a weird world Gordon and Arisa inhabit, but it makes it all the more fun to read. Now, before we continue, I must admit that I can't recommend this manga to everyone though. It is very clear, starting from chapter 1, that Crazy Food Truck is targeting a mature audience. Besides Arisa walking around topless basically the whole way through, there is also a ton of violence not suited for a younger audience. The Razovy community is mainly aged between 18 and 35, but still, if you're under the age of 18, get your parents' permission to read this manga. Talking about violence and nudity though, it's so refreshing to read a manga that contains both, but doesn't overly rely on any of it. Sure, it sometimes feels like I'm watching a Steven Seagal movie, but all of it is done tastefully well. Well, most of it at least. There is no reason for Arisa to be topless all the time, but hey, I sincerely doubt most of you will complain about this. Arisa is quite special to begin with. We know absolutely nothing about her, yet it feels like we've known her for years. She immediately hits it off with Gordon and loves his cooking. It does leave me wondering though, would Gordon have done the same thing if, instead of a cutie like Arisa, some old fat guy was laying there on the road? I guess we'll never know. I'm not going to give you any major spoilers, but I do want to mention there is something off about Arisa. Her appetite is abnormally large, and she's able to heal at an abnormal pace. Gordon, at first, just seems like this down-to-earth guy who has seen it all. His skills in combat seem a little off though, but other than that, I didn't think anything of him at first. He's the kind of guy I'd be cool to get a beer with, I reckon. It is only later in this story that we find out our Gordon used to be quite the important fellow, but again, I won't spoil that for you. When you start reading Crazy Food Truck, it feels like none of the chapters are progressing the story. You'll at first think that this manga is simply of an episodic nature, having none of the events truly impacting the overall plot. Why do I think that? Well, because I felt the same way at first. One chapter, Arisa and Gordon are fishing, while another they're freeing a town from the oppressive grip of rebel soldiers. Sometimes they're just screwing around eating snails, and in another chapter Gordon introduces Arisa to the wonderful world of saunas. Sure, some of the side characters like the crazy scientist hunting for special snails truly have no impact on the story, but once major figures in the military and a girl suspiciously looking like Arisa get involved, the story really gets going. While Gordon simply wants to serve customers with his food truck and Arisa wants to eat delicious food all day, they are eventually forced to go on the run because of the enemies they're making along the way. This will result in a beautiful ending in volume 3 that will wrap up the story very nicely. It might not be the ending you're going to hope for, but I'm certain it'll leave you satisfied. Personally, I haven't read a manga similar to Crazy Food Truck, but it does remind me a little of Sakamoto Days, where we have this retired assassin who lives a simple life, running a local store while spending time with his family. I'm planning on making a video about that manga too, so once that's done, I'll link it in the pinned comment down below. For now though, do me a favor and watch this next video in which I talk about an awesome anime called Heavenly Delusion. If there is one anime worth your time, it's this one, so don't skip out on it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I was Razovy, and you were you, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.